Manchester City Football Club has emerged as arguably the most successful English club in modern history. Since 2011, the Sky Blues have won 8 Premier League titles, 3 FA Cups, 6 EFL Cups, 4 Community Shields, the FIFA Club World Cup, the UEFA Super Cup, and the Champions League. They can boast legends such as Sergio Aguero, David Silva, Ilkay Gundogan, Vincent Kompany, Kevin De Bruyne, and many more. But not too long ago, Man City was in complete disarray, competing largely in the second division and on the verge of financial collapse. In that period, however, the citizens had a rare ray of light coming all the way from Georgia, and his name was Giorgi Kinkladze. Even though his time with the Sky Blues was relatively short, his freakish talent and loyalty touched the hearts and minds of City fans. But who is this guy? What made him so good? And why is he so often forgotten? Giorgi Kinkladze was born on July 6, 1973, in the Georgian capital of Tbilisi, which was part of the Soviet Union at the time. His father was keen to see his son succeed as a footballer, sometimes making him walk around the family home on his knees to strengthen his legs. He joined the youth academy of Georgian giants Dinamo Tbilisi at the age of 6 and quickly progressed through their youth ranks. When Georgian football formed their own league system in 1989, a family friend arranged for Kinkladze to move to Maverick Tbilisi. Maverick was a smaller club competing in the second division at the time, but the move allowed Kinkladze to play first-team football instead of playing for Dinamo's second team. In 1991, Maverick won the Privila Liga and was subsequently promoted to the first division. After a season in the top flight, the Georgian youngster was brought back to Dinamo for 1 million rubles. In Kinkladze's first season at the club, he grabbed 15 goals in 34 games from midfield, leading the club to a league and cup double. However, due to the ongoing Georgian Civil War, in 1993, the Dinamo Tbilisi management sought to put their players in a more stable environment. As part of this, Kinkladze was sent on loan to FC Saarbrücken in the German second tier. After the loan move, Kinkladze returned to Tbilisi and was eventually named the 1993 Georgian Player of the Year at the age of only 20. Dinamo president Merab Jordania was still uncomfortable with Kinkladze playing in Georgia amid political instability. After a couple of trials at Atletico and Real Madrid, he got the eye of Boca Juniors scouts, who took him to Argentina on a month-long loan. He idolized Diego Maradona and sought to emulate his playing style by becoming a number 10. Kinkladze finally met his childhood hero, but did not gain a permanent contract due to competition in his position. Returning to Dinamo once again, Kinkladze would become the best player in Georgia, racking up 32 goals in 46 games over his next 2 seasons, and winning 2 Georgian league titles and another Georgian Cup. Italian giants like AC Milan became keen on signing Kinkladze, with the press even naming him the Rivera of the Black Sea. But out of nowhere, after Manchester City chairman Francis Lee saw footage of the Georgian, he immediately contacted the Dinamo president, securing an agreement that Man City would have first refusal should Dinamo wish to sell the player. Jordania kept true to his agreement with Lee, and on the 15th of July 1995, Kinkladze signed for Manchester City for £2 million. The Sky Blues were in atrocious form, almost permanently in the relegation zone throughout the season. The team failed to win a single league game in the first 3 months of the campaign. Despite this, Kinky, as some fans referred to him, would show England what he was truly capable of. In a match against Middlesbrough, despite Borough being heavy favorites, Kinkladze scored the opening goal with a brilliant solo effort. The fans subsequently voted Kinkladze the best opposing player of the season. In another game against Southampton, the Georgian beat 5 players before chipping the ball over the keeper, sealing a 2-1 win for the citizens. The goal won Match of the Day's Goal of the Month and placed second in the programmer's Goal of the Season competition. Despite his wizardry, however, Man City were still relegated to the first division. The attacking maestro had been named Manchester City Player of the Year for the 1995-96 season and won his second Georgian Player of the Year award, ahead of Shota Arveladze and Kaka Kaladze. To put that into context, Arveladze bagged 28 goals in all competitions and won a Prime Minister's Cup with Trabzonspor. Kaladze, on the other hand, won a domestic treble in Georgia and was part of a defense that only conceded 16 goals in the league. Even his teammate Neil Quinn said that he would have won the Premier League's Player of the Year award had he been on a more successful team. Unsurprisingly, Kinkladze had several offers from the likes of Barcelona, Inter Milan, Liverpool, and Celtic, but he opted to stay at Maine Road. The following season would prove to be even worse for the Citizens, as the Manchester club would have their squad stripped of their best players and burned through 5 different managers. Even through this period of instability, his talent shined through. Operating primarily as a number 10, he was tasked with creating goal-scoring chances. Having a team built around him and free from defensive responsibilities, the Georgian often ran the show. One of his strongest abilities was his dribbling. His elegance, along with his control, quick feet, and feints, allowed him to glide past defenders effortlessly and avoid oncoming challenges with ease. Even when defenses would double or triple up on him, he would always find a way to wriggle free of them. His clever runs with the ball resulted in some spectacular goals. Additionally, the Georgian was incredibly intelligent and a fantastic playmaker. His vision, technique, and football IQ gave him the ability to draw the defense out and deliver a perfectly weighted ball at the right time. Another one of his strengths was his ability from set pieces. His corners, free kicks, and especially penalties were always accurate and consistently devastating. It proved to be a game-changing weapon for City, as several of Manchester City's goals were scored from the spot. In spite of Man City's horrible form throughout the season, Kinkladze enjoyed a fantastic individual campaign, grabbing 12 goals in 39 league appearances. Kinky won his second Manchester City Player of the Year award and featured in the PFA First Division Team of the Year. The Georgian was in high demand, and City supporters wanted to keep Kinkladze at the club. He announced his intention to stay at the club by signing a new 3-year contract. Kinkladze used his new contract earnings to buy a Ferrari. This concerned club officials, a fear that materialized when he crashed the car into a motorway bridge, suffering a back injury that required 30 stitches and caused him to miss 2 matches. As City's decline continued during the 1997-98 season, manager Frank Clark was replaced by Joe Royle. The Englishman favored a more defensive style and saw Kinky as an unnecessary luxury during a relegation fight. Royle immediately rushed to sell him, but when he couldn't, Royle played Kinky out of position, which frustrated him and made him less effective. Additionally, Royle severely criticized Kinkladze for a lack of effort, even dropping him from the next 6 games. In truth, it seemed like he had a personal vendetta against the Georgian. In his autobiography, Joe Royle reflected on Kinkladze's time at Manchester City with sharp criticism, acknowledging that while the fans saw the Georgian as a rare bright spot during a difficult period, he personally viewed Kinkladze as a liability. Royle felt that the intense fan admiration created a distracting cult phenomenon, and believed that the team's persistent underperformance since Kinkladze's arrival suggested that he was more of a weakness than an asset. With 2 games remaining, Manchester City was in the relegation zone, and Royle was forced to put Kinkladze in the starting lineup for the home match against QPR. The Queen's Park Rangers team contained Vinnie Jones, who had a violent reputation, having the second most yellow cards in the history of English football. Jones was all over Kinkladze, even targeting him in the tunnel before the start of the match. Even with Kinkladze scoring the opening goal with a brilliant free kick, City could not maintain their lead. Horrible defending and one of the most hilarious own goals I have ever seen from Jamie Pollock resulted in a 2-2 draw, which meant City were relegated to the 3rd tier for the first time in their history. Throughout the turmoil, the Georgian was still a standout, making the First Division Team of the Year for the 2nd time, making him one of the only players in English football to be relegated and still make the Team of the Year. Following transfer negotiations, Kinkladze joined Dutch giants Ajax for £5 million, but his time there turned into a disappointment. Initially signed to replace Jari Litmanen, the move backfired when the Finn stayed, forcing Kinkladze to play as a left winger, a role he was unfamiliar with. His situation worsened after manager Morten Olsen was sacked and replaced by Jan Wouters. The Dutch coach refused to adapt the system for Kinkladze, leading to the Georgian international losing his place in the team. Reflecting on the experience, he described it as hell due to the lack of playing time and rigid tactics. He immediately started looking elsewhere. Several English clubs showed interest in signing him, but were discouraged by work permit issues. This lack of regular playing time resulted in Kinky losing his place in the Georgian national team. Having failed to establish himself in the first team and struggling with a succession of injuries, he made just 12 appearances in his first and only season. Thankfully, Derby County took an interest in the playmaker and signed him for a club record fee of £3 million. He was not automatically entitled to a work permit, but a review panel gave him special disposition due to his previous contribution to English football. Kinkladze's time at Derby County was turbulent, marked by injury setbacks, managerial instability, financial chaos at the club, and fleeting moments of brilliance. After missing the start of the 2000-2001 season due to a hernia operation, he returned to make an immediate impact under Jim Smith, most notably helping Derby rally from a 3-0 deficit to draw 3-3 against Middlesbrough. Despite his contributions, Derby barely avoided relegation that season, and Kinkladze remained at the club due to a lack of offers stemming from his injuries and inconsistent form. The following season began with promise, but quickly soared after Smith's resignation and the arrival of Colin Todd, who disliked flair players and sidelined Kinkladze. Tensions grew, but with Todd sacking and John Gregory's appointment, Kinkladze regained his place in the first team. Despite regular play and brief moments of brilliance from the Georgian, Derby's struggles continued, and mounting debts forced the club to consider offloading higher earners. Derby's finances worsened when the club was inevitably relegated in 2002, losing key matchday revenue. It was so bad that Derby couldn't even afford to pay their players. Back in the first division, Kinkladze dealt with even more injuries following the start of the season. He played more regularly in the second half of the season and impressed enough to be named the Supporters' Player of the Year. However, Derby's decline in fortunes and the end of Premier League parachute payments led to cost-cutting, meaning Derby could only offer Kinkladze a 1-year contract extension on reduced wages. Unwilling to accept a pay cut and still hoping to play for a more successful club, Kinky ended contract talks with Derby and left the club at the end of the season, becoming a free agent at the age of only 30. After failed trials at several English clubs, he signed for Anorthosis Famagusta in Cyprus and Rubin Kazan in Russia, failing to find stability or consistent form at either, leading him to retire at Kazan in 2007. Giorgi Kinkladze, at his best, was an unstoppable force and had the potential to become one of the finest playmakers of his generation. However, he was frustrating. Inconsistencies, an occasional lack of contribution, and managers misusing him will be a stain on his legacy. Additionally, his poor career moves, injuries, and constant falling out with managers led to his downfall, playing in the Cypriot First Division at the age of only 30. Ultimately, though, the moments of magic he did produce earned him a place in city folklore and the status of a bona fide cult hero. Despite all the glory that has come to the blue side of Manchester, Kinkladze is still remembered as a Sky Blues legend, whose mazy dribbles, spectacular free kicks, and pure wizardry touch the hearts and minds of fans everywhere. And that should be a legacy worth celebrating.
Just the best in the world.
Absolutely brilliant when he's going forward and attacking.
The way he just makes them runs through the midfield, it's just delightful.
He's brought entertainment back at Manchester City.
Have you seen him? It's just brilliant. It just beats everyone all over, and his feet just so fast.
Close.
Best ever City player. Good question, because I've been watching City since the 60s.
Giorgi Kinkladze.
Apart from Aguero, I'd have to say Giorgi Kinkladze.
Giorgio Kinkladze.
When I think of Giorgi Kinkladze, I just think of a sporting, and in particular, obviously, a footballing magician, but also a showman. And let's not forget, this was a pretty dark time in City's history because it was a prelude to consecutive relegations. He was the one real beacon of light at the time. I mean, to me, he had the poise of a ballet dancer. He had the balance of a top-class international gymnast. He had the stealth of an expert pickpocket. And he had the acceleration over about 10 yards of an Aston Martin. And you put all of those together and you have an intoxicating mix of a footballer who was, let's face it, smaller than average, probably squatter than average, but none of that mattered because what you actually had was a magician with the ball at his feet. Whether he could fit into the current Manchester City side, I think he could. I think he'd have to do a bit more defending than he did back in the 1990s. There's a bit of Raheem Sterling in him. There's a little bit of Jack Grealish. But there's no one, even in this multi-talented current Manchester City side, that is anywhere particularly close to Kinkladze. He is the maverick talent. I think he would stand out even now.